Bootu, what is up? I had a really girly moment. Like, see that it's literally my middle finger. I don't want to like flip people off, but like I literally broke my nail. Like this is not even fake. This is my real nail, and it disturbs me that it broke. But sorry for my little girly rant. I don't normally have girly rants, so that's for you guys. Anyway, this is part 3 of Fear the Walking Dead, Season 2, Episode 8, titled Grotesque. This is part 3. I was hoping I wouldn't have a part 3 that much anymore. Try to, like, put as many in at least one video as possible. I know that's almost impossible with some things. So I expected at least a part 2 with most videos, but I was hoping not to make a part 3. Anyway, here's part 3. I left off in the last video, like, the return of those evil outlaws that killed that poor little old man that was just begging for water, and they heard a radio. It was the same outlaws that heard the radio next to Nick and pretty much chased him and shot at him and shit. They're back. I said in the last video, they saw the herd that Nick was traveling with, because remember, Nick, like, covered himself in infected blood and guts, and he was traveling down the road, well, limping down the road with the same herd, and, the outlaws saw the herd and they started shooting the infected, and one of the outlaws actually recognizes Nick through the little herd. He's like, hey, that guy looks familiar, and he noticed, oh, it's that same guy we were shooting at. I don't know if he thinks that Nick is dead or I don't know, but one of the outlaws does recognize Nick within the herd, because like, hey, it's the kid we shot at. I'm not sure if that outlaw thinks that Nick is actually dead and part of the infected coming at him, or that he knows that Nick is alive and just walking with the herd, right? And apparently he gets really spooked by Nick. Again, I don't know if he thinks that Nick is dead and actually part of the infected, or he's just walking amongst them. But something about Nick's little death glare that he has, like, because Nick and that outlaw pretty much lock eyes the moment the outlaw recognizes Nick. They pretty much lock eyes, and I don't know what it was, but apparently when they lock eyes and that little glare that Nick has spooks the hell out of that outlaw, and while they're shooting, because he's all spooked by Nick, he ends up freezing during the whole shootout, and because he freezes, he starts struggling when he's reloading his gun, and because he froze, he's struggling putting the reload, the herd manages to get to him and manages to devour the outlaw, and manages to get to another one of his accomplices that came out of the car with him. And remember, the outlaws, there were only 3 of them, right? And when they got to that herd, 2 of them came out of the car and started shooting up the herd, while the third one stayed in the car. I think he was also shooting, but he stayed in the car. But, the one that got spooked by Nick got devoured, the one that came out of the car with him got devoured, and the lone survivor that stayed in the car, like a smartass, manages to survive and drive off. And while all that's happening, there's a lady there with 2 men, and they are watching Nick through binoculars, and they noticed him traveling down the road with the herd. They saw the whole thing, right? And they noticed also that Nick is not infected. He's not dead, not part of the infected. He's actually alive, just covered in blood and guts. And they also noticed that he is struggling to, keep up pace even with the infected because of his wound. And eventually, after that whole ordeal with the outlaws happened, Nick finally cannot keep up anymore, and he falls to the ground, dehydrated and completely exhausted. And one of the 2 guys, who we learned his name is Francis. We learned that one of the 2 guys there, his name is Francis, and the lady there's name is Luciana. But anyway, Francis insists, Luciana, we gotta save this poor kid, right? But Luciana, she's like kind of bitchy about it. She's like, no, we're not gonna help him. Nah, and all that stuff. He's like, the kid's dying, we're not gonna help him. But for some oddball reason, last minute, she does change his mind right when he tells her, the kid's dying. Something about the fact, I think it's kind of interesting how she doesn't want to help him when Francis like, we gotta help him. But the moment Francis said the kid is dying, she last minute changes her mind. Maybe something about dying kind of triggered it, I don't know, but the moment she heard the kid was dying, she just had a 180 about saving the kid. But anyway, You know, Nick is laying there on the asphalt. He's dying of dehydration, all that stuff. And, of course, maybe his wound. And he's barely unconscious to the point where there's another flashback. Where I'm guessing this flashback was just moments before he woke up and found that the first infected in this series. Because remember, in the very first episode of Fear the Walking Dead, we saw our first infected, and turns out it was Gloria, which is, in fact, you know, Nick's girlfriend in the thing, right? Hang on for a sec, guys. Hold up. Sorry, guys, I needed to munch on something, and I saw something really interesting on TV that I wanted to see, and like I said in the previous video, I didn't want any background noise.